In a world that hums with ceaseless noise, smartphones buzzing, traffic roaring, and the endless chatter of our own anxious thoughts, there is a moment fleeting and fragile where silence calls. Picture a young woman named Clara standing at the edge of a crowded subway platform in a sprawling city. Her earbuds pulse with music, her phone glows with unread messages, and her mind races with deadlines and doubts. She's 28, a graphic designer working late nights to prove herself in a competitive firm. Her life feels like a treadmill set too fast, and though she's surrounded by people, she's never felt more alone. The weight of expectation presses on her chest, her boss's demands, her parents' hopes, her own dreams slipping through her fingers like sand. In this moment, as the train's screech fades and the crowd thins, Clara removes her earbuds. For the first time in months, she hears nothing but her own breathing. And in that stillness, a question surfaces unbidden. What am I running toward? Clara's story is not unique. It's the story of countless souls navigating a world that demands more than it gives. We live in an age of connection, yet disconnection festers. We are linked by screens but starved for meaning. Stress gnaws at our peace, conflict fractures our relationships, and the quiet voice of our deeper selves is drowned out by the clamor of modern life. But what if in this very chaos there lies an invitation to pause, to listen, and to rediscover a love that mends what is broken? This is where the teachings of Pope Francis and Christ meet us, not in lofty cathedrals or distant ideals, but in the gritty, beautiful mess of our daily lives. Pope Francis, with his gentle yet unflinching voice, reminds us in his encyclical Fratelli Tutti that we are all brothers and sisters bound by a shared humanity. He writes, "Let us dream then as a single human family, as fellow travelers sharing the same flesh, as children of the same earth, which is our common home." His words echo the heart of Christ's teaching in the Gospel of Matthew: love your neighbor as yourself, Matthew 22:39. These are not mere sentiments, they are a call to action, a blueprint for healing a world and ourselves through mercy. But what does mercy look like for someone like Clara, caught in the grind of urban life? How does it apply to the parent juggling work and children, the student battling anxiety, or the retiree feeling invisible? Mercy begins with truly seeing the person in front of us and even the person within us. It's the courage to step off the treadmill, to silence the noise, and to ask, who needs my love today? For Clara, this moment of stillness on the subway platform is the first crack in the wall she's built around her heart. It's an invitation to look beyond her own struggles and notice the world around her, the tired eyes of the man selling newspapers, the nervous fidgeting of the teenager beside her, the weight of countless untold stories. Pope Francis often speaks of the culture of encounter, a way of living that prioritizes real human connection over isolation. He says we need to acknowledge that we are constantly tempted to ignore others, especially the weak. We have become accustomed to looking the other way, passing by, ignoring situations until they affect us directly. This teaching is rooted in Christ's parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke 10:25 to 37, where a stranger stops to help a wounded man when others walk by. The Samaritan doesn't ask if the man deserves help, he simply acts. In our world where division and indifference often reign, this parable it challenges us to cross the street, to bridge the gap, to offer mercy without conditions. For Clara, the culture of encounter begins with a small, brave step. As she stands on the platform, she notices an elderly woman struggling with a heavy bag. Her first instinct is to keep walking. She's late, stressed, and barely holding it together herself. But something in her pauses. She approaches the woman, offers a smile, and helps carry the bag up the stairs. The woman's eyes light up, and she shares a brief story about her late husband, a memory sparked by Clara's kindness. It's a fleeting moment, but it shifts something in Clara. For the first time in weeks, she feels connected not just to this stranger but to a deeper sense of purpose. This is the power of mercy. It transforms both the giver and the receiver. Pope Francis emphasizes that mercy is not a one way street but a mutual exchange that restores dignity to all. In Misericordiae Vultus, he writes, mercy is the very foundation of the church's life. It is absolutely essential for the church and for the credibility of her message that she herself live and testify to mercy. Christ modeled this in his life, dining with sinners, touching lepers, and forgiving those who betrayed him. His mercy was not reserved for the deserving, but offered freely to all, a radical love that upended the status quo. So, how do we live this out in our own lives? Amidst the pressures of work, family, and personal struggles, let's consider practical steps grounded in the reality of our daily routines. First, cultivate moments of silence. Clara's pause on the subway platform was no accident. It was a crack in her frenetic life that let light in. Start small, 5 minutes in the morning, sitting with a cup of coffee, no phone, just breathing and listening. Ask yourself, what is my heart saying? What is God saying? This silence isn't empty, it's a space where clarity and compassion can grow. Second, practice seeing. Make it a habit to notice one person each day who might be overlooked, a coworker who seems off, a neighbor who's always alone, or even yourself when you're struggling. Pope Francis calls this the gaze of Jesus, a way of looking at others with love rather than judgment. For Clara, this meant seeing the elderly woman not as an inconvenience, but as a sister in need. Try this when you're in a hurry, slow down and make eye contact with someone. Offer a smile, a kind word, or a moment of your time. These small acts ripple outward, softening the edges of a harsh world. Third, act with intention. Mercy isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. Identify one concrete way to show love each day, no matter how small. It could be calling a friend who's grieving, helping a stranger with a task, or forgiving someone who's hurt you. Clara's decision to help with the bag was a spark that lit her path. For you, it might be volunteering at a local shelter, listening patiently to a child's story, or simply holding your tongue in a heated argument. These actions don't require grand gestures. They require a heart willing to move. Finally, reflect on your impact. At the end of each chapter day, take a moment to ask, how did I show mercy today? How did it change me? This reflection isn't about self congratulation, but about growth. Pope Francis encourages us to examine our conscience, not to dwell on guilt, but to deepen our capacity for love. Clara began journaling about her encounters, noting how each act of kindness made her feel less alone. Over time, these reflections became a map of her transformation, showing her how mercy was reshaping her life. Let's return to Clara's story. That evening, after helping the elderly woman, she sits in her small apartment, the city's hum filtering through her window. Her phone is still, her laptop closed. She pulls out a notebook and writes about the day, not her deadlines or stresses, but the woman's smile, the weight of the bag, the warmth of their brief connection. She feels a stirring, a sense that something bigger is at work. She recalls a phrase from a homily she heard years ago, something about being the hands and feet of Christ. It felt abstract then, but now it's real. She's not just surviving her life, she's starting to live it. This is the promise of mercy. It doesn't erase our struggles, but it gives them meaning. Pope Francis reminds us that we are called to show mercy because mercy has first been shown to us. Christ's life, his sacrifice, his resurrection is the ultimate act of mercy, a love that redeems even our darkest moments. When we embrace this love, we become conduits of it, carrying it into our homes, workplaces, and communities. Clara's small act on the subway platform wasn't just a moment, it was a beginning. It was the first step toward a life where stress and disconnection no longer have the final word. As Clara's story unfolds, we see that mercy is not a solitary act, but a way of being. It's a thread that weaves through our days, connecting us to others and to the divine. In a world that often feels fractured, this thread is our lifeline. It pulls us toward each other, toward healing, toward hope. And so, as Clara closes her notebook and looks out at the city lights, she feels a quiet resolve. She doesn't have all the answers, but she has a direction. She has mercy, and that is enough. The days that follow test Clara's newfound resolve. Her job grows more demanding with a major project deadline looming. Her boss, a sharp tongued perfectionist, critiques her designs relentlessly, and her confidence wavers. At home, her roommate's constant messiness sparks tension, and a fight leaves them barely speaking. The city space feels relentless again, and the stillness she found on the subway platform seems like a distant memory. Yet, something lingers, a seed planted in that moment of connection. Clara begins to notice opportunities to choose mercy even in the grind. One morning, she overhears a coworker Sam venting about his struggles as a single dad. He's usually reserved, hiding his stress behind a forced smile. Clara's instinct is to nod politely and move on. Her inbox is overflowing and she's already behind. But she remembers the elderly woman, the warmth of that encounter. She pauses, sets her coffee down, and asks Sam how he's holding up. The conversation is brief, but Sam's shoulders relax as he shares a bit about his daughter's school troubles. Clara doesn't solve his problems, but she listens, and that's enough to lighten his load. This small act ripples into Clara's work. She starts approaching her designs with more patience, seeing them not just as tasks, but as ways to bring beauty into the world. When her boss snaps at her, she takes a deep breath and responds with calm instead of resentment. It's not easy, mercy never is, but it's freeing. She's learning that mercy isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Pope Francis writes in Amors Moris Laetitia, we are called to be merciful, to forgive, and to bear one another's burdens with love. This echoes Christ's words in John 13:34, love one another as I have loved you. For Clara, this love is becoming a lens, changing how she sees her challenges and her choices. Her roommate situation is harder. The argument left a cold distance, and Clara's tempted to let it fester. But one evening, she recalls the Good Samaritan, who didn't let differences stop him. She knocks on her roommate's door not with accusations, but with an offer to cook dinner together. It's awkward at first, but as they chop vegetables and laugh over a burnt sauce, the tension eases. They don't resolve everything, but they start talking again. Clara realizes that mercy doesn't always fix things instantly, it builds bridges one step at a time. These moments, helping Sam, calming her frustration, reconciling with her roommate, are not grand heroics. They're ordinary acts infused with extraordinary love. Pope Francis often says that holiness is found in the little things, the daily choices to act with compassion. Clara's life isn't suddenly perfect, but it's fuller. She's less consumed by stress, more anchored in purpose. She starts carrying a small notebook, jotting down moments of mercy, hers and others. It becomes a record of grace, a reminder that she's part of something bigger. One entry stands out. On a rainy afternoon, Clara passes a homeless man outside her office, the same one she's seen for months but always ignored. This time she stops. She doesn't have much cash, but she offers to buy him a coffee and a sandwich. His name is Michael, and as they talk, he shares snippets of his life: a lost job, a fractured family. Clara listens, not judging or fixing, just being there. When they part, Michael thanks her not just for the food, but for seeing him. Clara walks away, rain soaking her coat, feeling a warmth she can't explain. She writes in her notebook, today I saw Jesus in Michael, and maybe he saw Jesus in me. This encounter marks a turning point. Clara begins to understand that mercy is a way of seeing God in the world. Pope Francis writes in Gaudete et Exsultate, seeing and acting with mercy, that is holiness. Christ's life was a testament to this. Every healing, every forgiveness, every moment he spent with the marginalized was a glimpse of God's love. For Clara, Michael wasn't just a stranger, he was a mirror reflecting her own need for grace and her capacity to give it. As weeks pass, Clara's notebook fills with stories. She writes about the barista who thanked her for her patience during a rush, the child who hugged her leg after she helped him find his mom in a park, the quiet moments of prayer that now start her day. Each entry is a step, a choice, a thread in the tapestry of mercy she's weaving. Her stress hasn't vanished nor have her conflicts, but they no longer define her. She's learning to live with open hands, giving and receiving love in equal measure. This is the heart of Pope Francis' call and Christ's command to love without counting the cost, to see without judging, to act without waiting for perfection. Clara's journey is just beginning, but it's a journey of transformation. She's not running anymore, she's walking deliberately toward a life where mercy is the compass. And in that choice, she's finding not just peace, but joy. Her story doesn't end here. The city still hums, the challenges still press. But Clara is different. She's becoming a bearer of mercy, a light in the chaos. And as she moves forward, her path will cross others, strangers, friends, and even enemies who will shape and be shaped by her growing faith. This is the beauty of mercy. It never stands still. It flows, it connects, it heals. And in a hurting world, it's the love that makes us whole. Clara's notebook, now a faithful companion, rests on her bedside table, its pages curling slightly from use. The city outside her window pulses with its usual rhythm, honking horns, flickering neon signs, the distant wail of a siren. But inside, Clara is carving out a new rhythm, one shaped by the small, deliberate acts of mercy she's begun to weave into her days. The memory of Michael, the homeless man, whose story stirred her heart, lingers like a quiet melody. It's not just his gratitude that stays with her, but the way their encounter made her feel alive, as if she'd glimpsed something sacred in the ordinary. Yet, as the weeks unfold, Clara faces a truth: mercy is not a single moment but a path, and paths are rarely smooth. Her work at the design firm grows more intense. The major project she's been pouring herself into, a campaign for a non profit focused on clean water access, demands late nights and constant revisions. Her boss, Elena, is brilliant but unforgiving, quick to point out flaws and slow to praise. Clara's confidence, already fragile, takes hit after hit. One afternoon, after a particularly brutal critique, Chingia sits at her desk, staring at her sketches, feeling the sting of failure. The old Clara would have spiraled into self doubt, retreating into her earbuds and isolation. But now she reaches for her notebook, flipping to a page where she'd scribbled a quote from Pope Francis's Laudato Si. All of us can cooperate as instruments of God for the care of creation, each with our own culture, experience, involvements, and talents. The words feel like a lifeline, reminding her that her work, imperfect as it is part of a larger purpose. This teaching, rooted in Christ's call to serve others, John 13:14-15, challenges Clara to see her struggles not as dead ends but as opportunities. Pope Francis emphasizes that caring for creation includes caring for each other, building a world where no one is discarded. For Clara, this means reframing her work not as a battle for approval, but as a chance to use her talents for good. She begins to approach her designs with a new lens, asking, how can this image, this color, this font inspire someone to care about clean water? The shift doesn't erase Elena's criticism, but it gives Clara a reason to keep going. She starts staying late, not out of fear, but out of a quiet passion, sketching ideas that feel like offerings. Yet the workplace isn't the only place testing her. At home, her roommate Lila remains a source of friction. Their dinner together had thawed the ice, but old habits die hard. Lila's cluttered dishes in the sink, clothes strewn across the couch grates on Clara's nerves, especially when she's exhausted. One evening, after a 12-hour work day, Clara snaps, her voice sharp as she confronts Lila about the mess. The argument escalates and Lila storms out, leaving Clara alone with her regret. She sits on the couch, head in her hands, feeling the weight of her own failure. It's tempting to justify her anger. Leela was inconsiderate, but Clara knows this isn't the way of mercy. She turns to her notebook where she'd written another of Pope Francis's teachings from Evangelii Gaudium. The joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. Let us not flee from the resurrection of Jesus. Let us never give up, come what will. These words echoing Christ's promise of new life. John 11:25-26 remind Clara that mercy includes forgiveness not just for others, but for herself. She realizes that living mercy means owning her mistakes and seeking reconciliation even when it's humbling. The next morning, she leaves a note for Leela. I'm sorry for last night. Can we talk? I'll make coffee. It's a small gesture, but it's a start. When Leela returns, they sit together, not fully resolving their differences, but agreeing to try harder. Clara learns that mercy is messy, requiring patience and persistence. These personal challenges are only part of Clara's journey. The city itself, with its stark contrasts of wealth and poverty, keeps pulling her outward. One Saturday, she volunteers at a community center helping serve meals to families in need. The room is loud, chaotic, filled with children running and adults chatting. Clara's tasked with handing out plates, and she notices a young boy, maybe 10, sitting alone picking at his food. His name is Jamal, and his guarded expression tugs at her. She sits beside him, offering a smile, and asks about his favorite superhero. Slowly, he opens up, talking about Spider Man and his dream of being an artist. Clara listens, sketching a quick Spider Man on a napkin, which makes Jamal's face light up. As she hands him the drawing, she feels that same warmth from her encounter with Michael, a sense of connection that transcends words. This moment reflects Pope Francis's call in Fratelli Tutti to build a culture of encounter where no one is invisible. He writes, each day offers us a new opportunity, a new possibility. We should not expect everything from those who govern us. We ourselves can and must respond to the challenges around us. This mirrors Christ's teaching in Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. For Clara, Jamal isn't just a kid at a community center. He's a reminder that every person carries a spark of the divine. She starts volunteering regularly, not out of duty, but because these encounters fill her with purpose. But mercy isn't always met with gratitude. One day while walking home, Clara sees a man yelling at a street vendor over a spilled coffee. The vendor, a woman with tired eyes, tries to apologize, but the man's anger escalates. Clara's instinct is to keep walking. Conflict makes her uneasy and she's not sure what to do. But she remembers the Good Samaritan who didn't shy away from a messy situation. She approaches cautiously, offering to buy the man another coffee. Her voice is calm, her tone gentle. The man glares but softens, muttering a thanks before walking away. The vendor, relieved, thanks Clara, her hands trembling. It's a small intervention, but it leaves Clara shaken. She realizes that mercy sometimes means stepping into tension, not avoiding it. These experiences, her struggles at work, her reconciliation with Leela, her encounters with Jamal and the vendor, begin to shape Clara's understanding of mercy as a way of life. Pope Francis often speaks of the revolution of tenderness, a radical love that challenges indifference and builds bridges. In Amoris Laetitia, he writes, tenderness is a sign of a life shaped by the gospel, a life that reaches out to others with compassion. This tenderness is Christ's love in action, seen in his washing of the disciples' feet, John 13:1-17, and his forgiveness from the cross, Luke 20:23-34. For Clara, tenderness is the courage to stay open even when it's hard. To live this out, Clara develops practical habits. She starts each morning with a brief prayer, not formal but heartfelt. Help me see with your eyes today. It's a reminder to look for opportunities to show mercy, whether at work, home, or in the city. She also keeps her notebook close, not just to record her acts of kindness, but to reflect on her failures when she loses her temper or misses a chance to help. She writes about it, asking, "What can I learn? How can I grow?" This reflection helps her see mercy as a journey, not a destination. She also seeks community. Clara starts attending a weekly faith group at a local church where people share stories of how they're trying to live out their beliefs. One member, an older man named Thomas, talks about forgiving a coworker who betrayed him years ago. His story resonates with Clara, who's still navigating her frustration with Elena. Thomas shares a quote from Pope Francis Misericordiae Vultus. Forgiveness is a force that reawakens hope and brings about change. Inspired, Clara begins to pray for Elena, not for her to change, but for understanding. Over time, she notices a shift not in Elena, but in herself. She's less reactive, more compassionate, even when Elena's critiques sting. Clara's encounters with others deepen her faith. One evening, she meets a woman named Rosa at the community center, a single mother who's been struggling since losing her job. Rosa's resilience, despite her hardships, humbles Clara. They start meeting for coffee, and Clara helps Rosa with her resume, using her design skills to make it stand out. Rosa lands an interview, and her gratitude overwhelms Clara. But more than that, Clara realizes that Rosa has given her something too, a reminder that mercy is reciprocal, a gift that flows both ways. Pope Francis writes in Gaudete et Exsultat, "The poor evangelize us because they enable us to discover the face of Christ." Rosa, like Michael and Jamal, is a teacher showing Clara the beauty of shared humanity. Yet, not every moment is uplifting. Clara faces days when exhaustion wins, when she's too drained to be kind or patient. One such day, after a grueling week, she ignores a panhandler on her way home, her mind too foggy to engage. The guilt hits her later, and she writes in her notebook, "I failed today, but I'll try again tomorrow." This honesty keeps her grounded, reminding her that mercy isn't about perfection, but persistence. Christ's parable of the prodigal son. Luke 15:11 to 32 comes to mind. The father's love doesn't depend on the son's worthiness, but on his return. Clara clings to this, knowing that God's mercy meets her in her weakness. As Clara's journey continues, her notebook becomes a tapestry of stories, moments of grace, struggle, and growth. She writes about the time she gave her coat to a shivering woman at a bus stop, the late night talks with Leela that rebuilt their friendship, the way her designs for the non-profit campaign finally earned a nod from Elena. Each story is a thread weaving a life shaped by mercy. Pope Francis's call to be missionaries of mercy resonates deeply, echoing Christ's command to go and do likewise. Luke 10, Science Ginchen 37. Clara is learning that mercy isn't just what she does, it's who she's becoming. One afternoon, Clara visits a park near her apartment, a rare moment of rest. She sits on a bench watching families play, joggers pass, and birds dart through the trees. Her notebook is open, and she writes, "Mercy is like this park, a place where everyone belongs, where every story matters." She thinks of Pope Francis' words in Laudato Si: "Everything is connected." Her acts of mercy, small as they are part of a larger web linking her to Michael Jamal, Rosa Leela, and countless others. This connection gives her hope even when the world feels overwhelming. Clara's faith, once a faint flicker, is now a steady flame. She still faces stress, conflict, and doubt, but they no longer define her. Mercy has become her compass, guiding her through the city's chaos. She's not a saint, not a hero, just a woman trying to live with open hands giving and receiving love in equal measure. And as she closes her notebook, the sun dipping low, she feels a quiet certainty this path of mercy, though challenging, is leading her somewhere beautiful. Her story weaves onward, pulling her into new encounters, new struggles, and new graces. The city, with its endless needs and hidden beauty, keeps calling her to act, to see, to love. And Clara, with her notebook and a growing faith, is ready to answer one merciful step at a time. The park bench where Clara sat, her notebook open to the sprawling thoughts of mercy, feels like a distant memory now, though only weeks have passed. Autumn has crept into the city, painting the trees in fiery hues and scattering leaves across the sidewalks. Clara's life too is shifting, colored by the choices she's made to live with intention. Her notebook, now a thick collection of stories and reflections, is a testament to her journey, a record of small victories, quiet failures, and the persistent call to love. But as the seasons change, so do the challenges, pulling Clara deeper into the complexities of mercy in a world that often resists it. Her work at the design firm has reached a turning point. The clean water campaign she's been laboring over is finally complete. And the nonprofit client is thrilled, praising the designs for their clarity and emotional impact. For the first time, Elena, her exacting boss, offers a rare compliment, her tone almost warm. "You've got something special, Clara. Keep pushing." The words land like rain on parched soil, nourishing Clara's battered confidence. Yet the victory is bittersweet. A new project looms, a high stakes ad campaign for a luxury brand, one that feels shallow compared to the non-profit work. Clara wrestles with the assignment, her heart tugging between her desire to excel and her growing unease with creating glossy images that glorify excess. This tension brings her back to Pope Francis's teachings in Laudato Si, where he calls for an integral ecology that honors both the earth and human dignity. He writes, "We are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis which is both social and environmental." These words resonate with Christ's parable of the talents, Matthew 25 14 to 30, where servants are entrusted with gifts and called to use them wisely. Clara sees her design skills as a talent, a gift to be stewardly used not for personal gain but for the good of others. She begins to wonder, how can I bring mercy into this project, even if it feels misaligned with my values? She experiments with subtle choices, using earthy tones instead of ostentatious golds, crafting visuals that hint at simplicity rather than extravagance. During a team meeting, she pitches an idea to include a nod to sustainability, suggesting the campaign highlight the brand's eco-friendly initiatives. Elena raises an eyebrow, but agrees to consider it a small win that feels like a crack in the wall of commercial indifference. Clara realizes that mercy in her work isn't about grand gestures, but about infusing her daily tasks with purpose, planting seeds of change where she can. At home, her relationship with Laila has stabilized, though not without effort. They've established a rhythm, shared chores, occasional movie nights, and honest conversations when tensions arise. But a new challenge emerges when Laila confides that she's struggling with anxiety triggered by a toxic work environment. Clara listens, her heart aching, as Laila describes sleepless nights and a constant sense of dread. It's a mirror to Clara's own past struggles, and she feels a pull to help, but also a fear of saying the wrong thing. She recalls Pope Francis' words in Christus Vivit: young people need to be approached with the patience and love of a companion on the journey, not with the attitude of a judge. This echoes Christ's gentle approach in John 4, where he meets the Samaritan woman at the well, offering her dignity rather than condemnation. Clara decides to be that companion for Lila. She starts small, inviting Lila for walks in the park to clear her mind, sharing breathing exercises she learned during her own anxious seasons. One evening, she suggests they try praying together, not formally, but simply a moment of gratitude for the day. Lila, hesitant at first, agrees, and they sit on the couch naming things they're thankful for: a warm meal, a kind coworker, the way the city lights sparkle at dusk. The practice becomes a ritual grounding them both. Clara sees that mercy here means walking alongside Lila, not fixing her pain, but sharing its weight. The city continues to be Clara's classroom, teaching her that mercy often demands courage. One chilly morning, she's on her way to the community center when she witnesses a heated argument at a bus stop. A young man, visibly frustrated, is shouting at an older woman who accidentally bumped into him. The woman, flustered, tries to apologize, but the man's anger escalates, drawing a small crowd. Clara's pulse quickens. She's never been comfortable with confrontation. Her instinct is to walk away, but she remembers Pope Francis' call in Fratelli Tutti to be good Samaritans who bear the pain of other people's troubles rather than fomenting greater hatred. This aligns with Christ's teaching in Matthew 5. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Taking a deep breath, Clara steps forward, her voice steady but kind. Hey, it sounds like a rough morning. Can I help? The young man glares, but her calm presence seems to diffuse his rage. He mutters something about a bad day and walks off. The older woman, shaken, thanks Clara, her hands trembling as she grips her bag. It's a fleeting moment, but it leaves Clara exhilarated and humbled. She realizes that mercy sometimes means standing in the gap, absorbing tension to create space for peace. These encounters, her work, her friendship with Laila, her intervention at the bus stop, deepen Clara's understanding of mercy as a dynamic force, one that requires both action and surrender. She's learning to trust that her efforts, however small, are part of a larger tapestry. Pope Francis writes in Gaudete et Exsultate, we are all called to be holy by living our lives with love and by bearing witness in everything we do wherever we find ourselves. This holiness, rooted in Christ's example of selfless love, Philippians 2 5 to 8, is not about perfection but about fidelity to the call of the moment. Clara's faith group at the church becomes a vital anchor. The weekly meetings, once a tentative experiment, are now a source of strength. She shares her struggles with the luxury brand project, and the group listens, offering perspectives that challenge and encourage her. One member, a teacher named Sarah, shares a story about integrating her faith into her classroom, subtly weaving lessons of compassion into her curriculum. Inspired, Clara begins to see her design work as a classroom of sorts, a place to teach through her choices. She starts a side project in her spare time, creating free graphics for local non-profits, a way to balance the commercial demands of her job with her desire to serve. Her connection with Rosa, the single mother from the community center, also grows. Rosa lands a job thanks in part to the resume Clara helped design and invites Clara to celebrate over homemade tamales. The evening is filled with laughter, Rosa's children playing in the background, their joy infectious. But Rosa also opens up about her fears, being a good mother, staying afloat financially, facing judgment as an immigrant. Clara listens, her heart stirred by Rosa's resilience. She recalls Pope Francis's words in Amoris Laetitia: the church must accompany with attention and care the weakest of her children who show signs of a wounded and troubled love. This reflects Christ's care for the marginalized as seen in his healing of the blind man, John 9 1 to 12, where he restores not just sight but dignity. Clara offers to babysit Rosa's kids one evening a week, giving Rosa time to attend a support group. It's a practical act of mercy, but it also enriches Clara's life. The kids, full of energy and curiosity, teach her patience and wonder. One night, as she helps them draw pictures, the youngest Sophia asks why Clara is so kind. Clara pauses, then says, because someone was kind to me first. It's a simple answer, but it points to the heart of her faith, the mercy she's received from God, which flows through her to others. Yet Clara's journey is not without setbacks. One evening after a long day, she's approached by a panhandler outside her apartment. She's exhausted, her wallet empty, and she brushes him off, her voice sharper than intended. The man's face falls, and Clara walks away, guilt gnawing at her. Later, she writes in her notebook, I turned away today. I was tired, but that's no excuse. She reflects on Pope Francis's teaching in Misericordiae Vultus. Mercy is not only an action of the Father, but it becomes a criterion for ascertaining who his true children are. This echoes Christ's words in Matthew 7:30, and not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father. Clara resolves to do better, carrying a few granola bars in her bag for future encounters. Her relationship with Elena also tests her. Though Elena's praise was a milestone, her demeanor remains unpredictable, and Clara often feels like she's walking on eggshells. One day, after a tense meeting, Clara overhears Elena on a personal call, her voice strained as she talks about her mother's illness. It's a glimpse into Elena's humanity, and Clara feels a pang of empathy. She begins to pray for Elena daily, not just for patience, but for healing in Elena's life. This shift softens Clara's heart, making it easier to respond to Elena's critiques with grace. She's learning that mercy includes loving those who are hard to love as Christ did with those who opposed him, Luke 6:27 to 28. Clara's notebook fills with these stories. Her struggle with the luxury brand, her companionship with Lila, her peacemaking at the bus stop, her time with Rosa's kids, her failures and redemptions. Each entry is a brushstroke in a larger picture, one that reveals mercy as both a gift and a discipline. Pope Francis' call to be merciful like the Father, Luke 6:36, is becoming Clara's mantra, guiding her through the city's chaos. She's not immune to stress or conflict, but she's learning to meet them with a heart shaped by love. One crisp afternoon, Clara returns to the park, her notebook in hand. The leaves crunch under her feet, and she finds a quiet spot by a pond where ducks glide across the water. She writes, Mercy is like this pond, still on the surface, but alive with movement beneath. She thinks of all the lives she's touched and been touched by Michael, Jamal, Rosa, Leela, even Elena. Each connection is a ripple spreading outward, changing the world in ways she may never see. Pope Francis writes in Evangelii Gaudium, the gospel tells us constantly to run the risk of a face to face encounter with others with their physical presence, which challenges us with their pain and their pleas. Clara is running that risk, and it's making her more fully alive. Her faith, once a quiet ember, now burns brightly, fueled by these encounters. She still doubts, still stumbles, but she's learning to trust the path of mercy. The city, with its endless demands and hidden graces, keeps calling her to love more deeply, to see more clearly, to act more boldly. And Clara, with her notebook and her growing courage, is answering one step at a time, ready for whatever lies ahead. Wattage. The pond in the park, its surface rippling with the dance of ducks and falling leaves, has become a kind of sanctuary for Clara. Her notebook, now nearly full, lies open on her lap as she sits there one November afternoon, the air crisp and tinged with the scent of earth. The city hums around her, but here in this pocket of quiet, she feels grounded. The stories she's written, Michael's gratitude, Jamal's smile, Rosa's resilience, Lila's trust, form a mosaic of mercy, each piece a testament to the love she's learning to give and receive. But the path of mercy is not a straight line, and Clara is about to discover its deeper demands, ones that will stretch her heart and test her resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. Winter is creeping closer, and with it, a new season of challenges. At the design firm, the luxury brand campaign Clara had wrestled with is wrapping up, but it leaves her uneasy. Though she managed to weave subtle elements of sustainability into the visuals, the project's focus on extravagance clashes with her growing sense of purpose. She feels a disconnect, a quiet ache that her work isn't fully aligned with the values she's been cultivating. This tension comes to a head when Elena announces a new opportunity, a promotion to lead designer contingent, on Clara spearheading another high profile commercial campaign. The role would mean more money, more prestige, but also more projects that feel hollow. Clara's heart races with both excitement and dread. She turns to her notebook where she'd copied a passage from Pope Francis's Laudato Si. We need to experience a conversion or change of heart to take up the challenge of living simply so that others may simply live. These words, rooted in Christ's call to seek first the kingdom of God, Matthew 6:30, challenge Clara to examine her choices. Is she designing to impress or to serve? The promotion is tempting, but she wonders if it's a path that will pull her further from the mercy she's been striving to embody. She begins to pray, not for clarity, but for courage, asking, what does it mean to be faithful in this moment? Her faith group at the church becomes a sounding board. During a meeting, she shares her dilemma, her voice wavering as she describes the allure of the promotion and her fear of losing herself in it. Thomas, the older man who once spoke of forgiveness, listens intently, then shares a story of his own, a time when he turned down a lucrative job to teach at a struggling school. It wasn't easy, he says, but it was right. Sometimes mercy means saying no to what the world offers so you can say yes to what God asks. His words echo Pope Francis' teaching in Gaudete et Exsultat. We need to acknowledge the temptations we face and discern God's will in the midst of them. Clara leaves the meeting unsettled but inspired, realizing that mercy in her career might mean choosing a path less traveled. She decides to meet with Elena, not to decline the promotion outright, but to propose an alternative. Gathering her courage, she suggests creating a new division within the firm focused on pro bono work for non-profits, allowing her to lead projects that align with her values while still contributing to the company. Elena is skeptical, her pragmatism clashing with Clara's idealism, but she agrees to consider it. If Clara can prove its viability, it's not a yes, but it's a door cracked open, and Clara feels a spark of hope. She starts researching, sketching out a plan, her designs infused with the same passion she felt for the clean water campaign. This process teaches her that mercy in the workplace isn't just about small acts of kindness, but about advocating for systemic change, even when the odds feel stacked against her. At home, Clara's relationship with Lila deepens, their prayer ritual a steady anchor. But a new test arises when Lila receives a job offer in another city. The news hits Clara like a wave. She's thrilled for Layla, but devastated at the thought of losing her closest friend. Their apartment, once a battleground, has become a haven, and the prospect of living alone feels daunting. Lila, too, is torn, wrestling with the opportunity and her attachment to Clara. One night, as they sit with their usual mugs of tea, Lila confesses her fear of starting over. Clara listens, her heart heavy, and recalls Pope Francis' words in Amoris Laetitia: love always involves a deep concern for the good of the other, even when it means letting go. This reflects Christ's self-giving love in John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Clara realizes that mercy means supporting Lila's growth even if it hurts. She encourages Lila to take the job, promising to visit and stay connected. They spend Lila's final weeks together, cherishing small moments, cooking meals, watching old movies, laughing over shared memories. When Lila moves, Clara helps pack her boxes, each one a bittersweet reminder of their bond. The day Lila leaves, they hug tightly, tears mixing with smiles. Clara feels the ache of loss, but also a quiet joy knowing she's loved well. She writes in her notebook, mercy sometimes means holding loosely, trusting that love endures distance. The city as always keeps teaching Clara. Her volunteering at the community center, has become a weekly rhythm, and her connection with Jamal, the young artist, grows stronger. One Saturday, she notices Jamal seems withdrawn, his usual spark dimmed. Sitting with him, she gently asks what's wrong. He hesitates, then shares that his mom is sick and he's scared. Clara's heart aches. She's no stranger to fear, but seeing it in a child is different. She recalls Pope Francis' call in Christus Vivit to be a church that goes forth ready to be present to young people in their moments of need. This echoes Christ's tenderness toward children in Mark 10:14. Let the little children come to me. Clara doesn't have answers, but she offers presence. She brings Jamal art supplies, encouraging him to draw his feelings, and sits with him as he sketches a storm with a small sun breaking through. They talk about hope, about how even dark days pass. Clara also reaches out to the community center's director, connecting Jamal's family with resources for medical support. Her actions are small but intentional, a reminder that mercy meets people where they are, offering light in the shadows. Jamal's shy thank you paired with a new drawing of Spider Man saving the day becomes another treasure in Clara's notebook. But the city also confronts Clara with its harder edges. One evening, walking home, she's caught in a protest downtown. The crowd is tense, chanting against rising rents and evictions, their anger palpable. Clara's first instinct is to slip away. She's not a protester and the chaos unnerves her. But as she watches, she sees faces like Rosa's, Michael's, Jamal's, people whose struggles she's come to know. Pope Francis's words in Fratelli Tutti come to mind. We cannot be indifferent to suffering. We cannot allow anyone to go through life as an outcast. This aligns with Christ's call in Luke 4:18 to proclaim good news to the poor and set the oppressed free. Clara stays not to join the chants but to listen. She talks to a protester, a young woman named Aisha, who shares her fear of losing her apartment. Clara doesn't have solutions, but she offers her contact info, promising to share Aisha's story with her faith group, which is exploring housing advocacy. The conversation is brief, but it plants a seed. Clara realizes that mercy sometimes means standing with those who are hurting, amplifying their voices even when it's uncomfortable. She writes in her notebook, mercy isn't neutral, it takes sides with the vulnerable. These experiences, her career crossroads, Leela's departure, Jamal's fear, the protest, deepen Clara's understanding of mercy as a force that both comforts and challenges. Pope Francis writes in Misericordiae Vultus, mercy is the bridge that connects God and humanity, opening our hearts to the hope of being loved forever despite our sinfulness. This bridge built by Christ's sacrifice. John 3:16 invites Clara to cross into new territories of love even when they scare her. She's learning that mercy requires vulnerability, a willingness to risk rejection, failure, or misunderstanding. To sustain this path, Clara leans on practical habits. She continues her morning prayer, now adding a request: show me where to be your hands today. She also starts a gratitude journal alongside her notebook, listing daily moments of grace, a co-worker's kindness, a stranger's smile, the way the city's skyline glows at dawn. This practice keeps her grounded, reminding her that mercy is woven into the ordinary. She also seeks solitude, returning to the park or sitting in the church's quiet sanctuary where she reflects on her choices. These moments of stillness, inspired by Pope Francis's call to contemplation in Laudato Si, help her discern her next steps. Her connection with Rosa remains a lifeline. Though Rosa's life is stabilizing, she faces new challenges balancing work and parenting, navigating prejudice as an immigrant. Clara continues babysitting, and their coffee chats evolve into deeper conversations about faith. Rosa shares her Catholic roots, and they start reading Pope Francis' writings together, discussing how to live mercy in their daily lives. One evening, Rosa admits she's been inspired by Clara's notebook and wants to start her own. Clara, touched, gives her a new journal inscribed with a quote from Evangelii Gaudium. The joy of the gospel is for all people, no one can be excluded. Their friendship becomes a mutual exchange, each woman teaching the other what it means to love. Clara's relationship with Elena also evolves, though slowly. After overhearing Elena's call about her mother's illness, Clara begins small acts of kindness, bringing Elena coffee, offering to take on extra tasks when Elena seems overwhelmed. These gestures don't transform Elena overnight, but they soften the edges of their interactions. One day, Elena shares a rare personal detail mentioning her mother's recovery. Clara listens, sensing an opening, and gently shares that she's been praying for them. Elena's response is guarded but grateful, a crack in her armor. Clara sees this as mercy's slow work, echoing Christ's patience with those who doubted him. John 20, 27, 29. Yet, Clara's failures still sting. One day, distracted by work stress, she snaps at a community center volunteer who forgets to assign her a task. Her sharp tone leaves the volunteer flustered, and Clara regrets it instantly. Later, she apologizes, owning her mistake, and writes in her notebook, "Mercy means saying sorry even when it's humbling." She reflects on Pope Francis's teaching in Amoris Laetitia. We need to be able to acknowledge our errors and ask forgiveness. This humility, modeled by Christ's washing of the disciples' feet, John 13:5, keeps Clara grounded, reminding her that growth comes through grace, not perfection. As winter approaches, Clara's notebook overflows with stories: her pitch to Elena, her goodbye to Leela, her time with Jamal, her stand at the protest, her bond with Rosa. Each entry is a step on the path of mercy, a path that winds through joy and pain, clarity and doubt. Pope Francis's call to be missionaries of mercy resonates deeply, echoing Christ's command to love one another. John 13:34. Clara is becoming that missionary not through grand heroics but through daily choices to seek, to act, to love. One evening, Clara sits in her apartment, the city's lights twinkling outside. She opens her notebook, reading through months of entries, and feels a swell of gratitude. The promotion decision still looms, Lila's absence still aches, and the city's needs still press. But Clara is different. She's learning to live with open hands, trusting that mercy will guide her. She writes, "Mercy is like the city, messy alive, always calling me to more." And as she closes her notebook, she knows this journey is far from over, but she's ready for its next chapter, one merciful step at a time. Winter has settled over the city, wrapping it in a hush of snow and sharp air. Clara's apartment, once warmed by Leela's presence, feels quieter now, though she's grown accustomed to the solitude. Her notebook, its pages now a dense tapestry of stories, sits on her small kitchen table, a silent witness to her transformation. The entries: Michael's coffee, Jamal's drawings, Rosa's tamales, the protests' chants, Elena's fleeting vulnerability, trace a journey of mercy that has reshaped Clara's heart. But as the year draws to a close, she senses a new chapter unfolding, one that will ask her to integrate all she's learned and carry mercy into uncharted territory. The city, with its endless pulse of need and beauty, continues to call, and Clara is ready to answer, though the path ahead feels both daunting and sacred. The decision about the promotion at the design firm looms large. After pitching her idea for a pro bono division, Clara has spent weeks researching, building a proposal that balances idealism with pragmatism. She's poured her heart into it, sketching mock ups for nonprofit campaigns and outlining how the firm could gain visibility through social impact. But Elena remains hesitant, her focus fixed on profit margins. One snowy morning, Clara is called into Elena's office. Her stomach knots as Elena slides the proposal across the desk, her expression unreadable. This is ambitious, Elena says, but it's a risk. Convince me. Clara takes a deep breath, her voice steady as she explains how mercy driven work can inspire loyalty, attract clients, and align with the firm's values. She shares a story from her notebook, how designing for the clean water campaign gave her purpose, and how that passion translated into better work. Elna listens, her skepticism softening, and agrees to a trial run for the division with Clara leading it part time. It's not the full victory Clara hoped for, but it's a start, a crack of light in the corporate machine. This moment reflects Pope Francis' teaching in Laudato Si. We must regain the conviction that we need one another, that we have a shared responsibility for others and the world. Clara sees her proposal as a small act of stewardship, echoing Christ's parable of the mustard seed, Matthew 13:31-32, where tiny efforts grow into something transformative. She begins the trial run with fervor, collaborating with a local shelter to design flyers for a fundraising event. The work is unpaid, but it fills her with the same joy she felt sketching for Jamal. She's learning that mercy in her career means persistence, planting seeds even when the soil feels hard. At home, the absence of Leela is a quiet ache, but their weekly video calls keep their bond alive. Lila's new job is challenging, but she's thriving, and Clara feels a swell of pride. One evening, Lila shares that she started her own journal, inspired by Clara's notebook, jotting down moments of kindness she's given and received. The news touches Clara deeply, a reminder that mercy ripples outward. She recalls Pope Francis' words in Evangelii Gaudium. Every Christian is a missionary to the extent that he or she has encountered the love of God in Christ Jesus. This missionary spirit, rooted in Christ's Great Commission, Matthew 28:19-20, is alive in Lila. And Clara sees herself as a spark in that chain of grace. She writes in her notebook, mercy multiplies, it's not just mine to give, but ours to share. Her work at the community center remains a cornerstone. Jamal, the young artist, has become a regular presence, his confidence growing with each drawing. But his mother's illness worsens, and one Saturday, Clara finds him sitting alone, his sketch pad untouched. His eyes are red, and he admits he's scared she won't get better. Clara's heart clenches. She's no stranger to fear. But its weight in a child is heavier. She sits beside him, remembering Pope Francis's call in Christus Vivit to accompany young people without judging them, simply being there for them. This echoes Christ's compassion in Matthew 19:14, where he welcomes children with open arms. Clara doesn't offer false promises. Instead, she shares a story from her own life about a time she felt helpless but found strength in small acts of hope. She suggests they draw together, creating a picture for Jamal's mom, a bright scene of a garden in bloom. Jamal's focus returns his pencil, moving with purpose, and when they finish, he hugs Clara tightly. She connects his family with a support group through the community center, a practical step that feels like an extension of her prayer. This encounter deepens Clara's understanding of mercy as presence. She is not a savior, but a companion offering love in the face of pain. She starts a weekly art workshop at the center, inviting kids like Jamal to express themselves through color and shape. The room buzzes with laughter and creativity, and Clara sees it as a microcosm of Pope Francis' culture of encounter, where every person is valued. One boy shy and a new draws a picture of a broken bridge, then adds a figure rebuilding it. When Clara asks about it, he says, "It's me fixing things." The image stays with her, a symbol of mercy's power to mend what's fractured. The city, as always, keeps her on her toes. One frigid evening, Clara's on her way home when she sees a young woman barely older than a teenager shivering outside a closed storefront. Her thin jacket and hollow eyes tell a story of hardship. Clara's tired, her own coat barely warm enough, but she remembers Michael, the homeless man whose coffee warmed more than his hands. Pope Francis' words in Fratelli Tutti flashed through her mind. The poor are not a problem, they are a resource and opportunity to encounter Christ. This aligns with Christ's teaching in Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did for me. Clara approaches offering to buy the woman a hot meal at a nearby diner. Her name is Tara, and over soup she shares fragments of her story running from an abusive home struggling to find work. Clara listens, her heart stirred, and gives Tara her scarf and a card with the community center's contact info. It's not a solution, but it's a start, and Tara's quiet thank you feels like a gift. This encounter shakes Clara, exposing the city's raw edges. She joins her faith group's housing advocacy efforts inspired by her conversation with Aisha at the protest. They organize a meeting with local leaders where Clara uses her design skills to create compelling visuals, highlighting the eviction crisis. The process is slow, the outcomes uncertain, but Clara feels alive, part of something bigger. She's learning that mercy isn't just personal, it's communal, a collective stand for justice. Pope Francis writes in Laudato Si, everything is interconnected, and this invites us to develop a spirituality of global solidarity. Clara's advocacy, small as it is her way of living that solidarity, echoing Christ's mission to bring good news to the oppressed. Luke 4:18. Her relationship with Elena evolves too, though it's far from easy. The trial run for the pro bono division keeps Clara busy, and Elena's occasional impatience resurfaces. But Clara's prayers for Elena have softened her own heart, and she notices Elena's stress more than her sharpness. One day, after a tense meeting, Clara leaves a note on Elena's desk with a simple message. Thinking of you and your mom. Let me know if you need anything. It's a risk, but when Elena mentions it later, her tone softer. Clara senses a shift. They're not friends, but there's a mutual respect growing, a testament to mercy's slow, steady work. Clara reflects on Christ's love for those who opposed him, Luke 6:27, and writes in her notebook, mercy doesn't demand change, it offers it quietly. Rosa remains a pillar in Clara's life. Their journal sharing has become a ritual, each woman reading the other's entries and discussing how faith shapes their choices. Rosa's job is stable, but she faces new pressures, long hours. Her kids' school struggles the weight of being a single parent. Clara continues babysitting, and one night, Sofia, Rosa's youngest, asks if Clara believes in miracles. The question catches her off guard, but she answers honestly. I think miracles are when love shows up even in hard times. Sofia nods, then draws a picture of Clara and Rosa holding hands, a child's vision of mercy. Clara tucks it into her notebook, a reminder of Pope Francis' words in Amoris Laetitia. The family is the setting in which a new life is not only born but also welcomed as a gift of God. Rosa's family, though not Clara's by blood, is her family in love, a sacred bond forged by shared grace. Clara's failures still surface. One day, overwhelmed by work and volunteering, she forgets a promise to call Laila, leaving her friend hurt. The guilt stings, and Clara writes an apology reflecting on Pope Francis' teaching in Misericordiae Vultus Mercy is not a one-time act but a process, a journey. This echoes Christ's parable of the prodigal son, Luke 15:11-32, where love waits patiently for return. Clara calls Laila, owning her mistake, and their conversation mends the rift, reminding Clara that mercy includes humility, the willingness to repair what's broken. As Christmas approaches, Clara feels a pull to reflect on her journey. She visits the church, sitting in its quiet glow, the stained glass windows, casting colors on the pews. She opens her notebook, reading entries from the past year, moments of courage, connection, and growth. Each story is a thread in a larger tapestry, one woven by mercy. Pope Francis' call to be merciful like the Father, Luke 6:36, has become her guide, a light through the city's chaos. She thinks of Christ's birth, a humble act of love that changed the world, Luke 2:7, and sees her own acts of mercy as echoes of that first gift. On Christmas Eve, Clara joins the community center's holiday meal serving alongside volunteers and families. Jamal's there, his mom, stronger, their smiles a quiet miracle. Rosa brings her kids, and they laugh as Sophia hands Clara a new drawing, a star shining over the city. Later, Clara walks home through snowy streets, the city aglow with lights. She feels a deep peace, not because her life is perfect, but because it's purposeful. Her notebook, now full, is a record of a life being transformed one merciful act at a time. She writes a final entry. Mercy is the city's heartbeat, alive in every hand that reaches out, every heart that opens. The challenges, work, loss, injustice haven't vanished, but they no longer define her. Clara is a missionary of mercy carrying Christ's love into the world, inspired by Pope Francis's vision of a church that goes forth. As she closes her notebook, the snow falling softly, she knows this is not the end, but a beginning, a life of mercy ever unfolding, ever calling her to love.